Hello, everyone. Welcome to what is now the virtual session number 3 for our Life Pass program. For those of you who have not joined us in the past or have not seen one of our first couple of sessions, the virtual sessions we started recently as an extension of what we're doing here locally in the Davidson County, North Carolina area at 2 local high schools, North Davidson High School and Oak Grove High School, which is where the program initially started. So what we're doing now is a virtual extension of that, which is great because we can have some folks on with some real, with terrific knowledge, perspective from life and career that aren't necessarily local. So with us today are both of them longtime friends of mine, Jim Woodrum and Mike Carlton, both of which have spent, if not their entire career, I think pretty much all of their career in the sports industry. So I'm going to let them just kind of briefly introduce themselves, who they're with, their company, and what their day-to-day life looks like. So Jim, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm Jim Woodrum, and I am the founder and owner and actually sole person in my little consulting group. It's called Woodrum Consulting Group. Been working on it about 18 months. And my day-to-day is working with companies, sports organizations, actually theme parks, and other types of sports and entertainment-related businesses to assist them in any way possible. Sometimes it's in sales, sometimes it's in consulting and operations. Whatever they can do, whatever they need, I'm kind of a jack of all trades.
Great. Thank you for joining us. Great to have you with us. Mike?
Well, thanks, John. I'm Mike Carlton. I work with Fanatics. I've been with Fanatics for 5 years. You may or may not have heard of Fanatics. We haven't spent a lot of time until recently ever trying to build that brand. We were always the brand behind the brand. We are the largest retailer of sports licensed product, fan gear, in other words, in the world. And so if you go to buy NFL gear and you go to NFLshop.com, you go to the NBA store.com, MLB, all the professional leagues, and about 120 colleges and universities around the country for which we power their official e-commerce sites. I work on the college side of the house, so I am part of our business development team. And so it's my job, along with my colleagues, to go out and sign up schools to our services, and then to make sure they're happy and that we're collectively working together to maximize the revenue opportunities that come for us.
Great to have you with us too, Mike. I appreciate you guys joining us. And Mike and Jim both, in addition to their current and most recent roles, have spent a lot of time in either the high school or college multimedia rights, corporate sponsorship space. So a vast array of knowledge, expertise in those areas. So as many of you know who are familiar with our program, we typically pick a topic to focus on through personal development and how different aspects of personal development can help us as individuals. Today's session, our focus, our topic is personal GPS. So in a day and age of so much technology, more so than ever, we can plug in an address to our phone, to a computer, and it will take us practically anywhere in the world as long as we just follow the directions. It'll take us to our destination. Our personal GPS or individual GPS, whichever you want to call it, a little bit different. We as individuals are directly and ultimately responsible for our path, our direction, and ultimately our destination. So for example, on a day that if we get up and we decide, we're going to sit on the couch and watch TV today, and we do that all day long, our destination is sitting on that couch. That's where we start, that's where we finish. On the other hand, if we get up and we have the perspective of, I'm going to be productive, I'm going to be helpful, I'm going to be intentional, I'm going to help others. We reach a different destination. So our personal GPS on an individual basis will take us where we determine. Now there's other influences, other people, challenges, issues. It's not solely up to us because there's other factors that influence that. But primarily it's our actions, it's our relationships and our decisions on a daily, weekly, monthly, and then on a short and long-term basis. So that's what we're going to get into today. And we're going to start with this first question. And this is for Mike and Jim. Mike, this is for you guys, both of you. What best practices, and this is around decision-making specifically, what best practices have you learned about decision-making and how you approach important decisions that you can share with high school students? Jim?
I would say one of the big things I've learned is just kind of stick with my gut. If I feel it inside, I go with that. You know, as a sole person right now, that's what I live on is my gut. When I worked and, you know, had 50 or 100 employees working for me, it was a little different. You know, I had to take input from a bunch of different people, had to figure out, you know, what their thoughts were on it, had to bring in, you know, what's the best thing, look at it from both angles and stuff like that. But ultimately, it was to make a decision. And for me, it was about making a quick decision. I was never one who agonized over decisions because I think that costs you time, and time's very important. So I'd say go with your gut on little stuff. If you got something really big, I used to sleep on it when I had super big decisions, like if I was going to take another job or if I was going to move or do something different, I would sleep on it. And when I would wake up in the morning, I would just know. If I woke up and I had had a great restful night's sleep and everything felt great, it was a good decision. If it was a bad decision, I had a restless night's sleep, I woke up the next morning with a pit in my stomach, and I would say, well, that's a bad decision. I shouldn't be doing that. So that's a couple of tricks that I've learned over the years that kind of help me. And I think it's an individual thing. You've got to learn yourself a little bit to make good decisions.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. And then so much of it is that, right? It's yourself, because nobody can make those decisions for us. It comes down to our own individual self, knowing ourselves. And I love what you said, just following your gut instinct. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, Jim's advice is great. It's rare, and the older I get, the more I realize that when I do follow my gut, it's rarely wrong, especially when you give it some time to really analyze a situation and think it through. Beyond that, I would say, first off, you know, feel free to seek guidance from trusted sources. Yeah. You know, don't assume that you have to have all the answers on your own, and know that asking for assistance is okay. I mean, that's tough sometimes. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's a friend, but know that it's okay to ask for help and help you analyze a situation, because someone may present a point of view that you weren't even thinking about, and it may ultimately change what the decision you make. But when you do all that, I would say, you know, weigh the pros and cons and think about the effect your decision is going to have on others as well as your own short-term and long-term goals. And then lastly, once you make that decision, you know, believe in it and do what you need to do to give yourself the best outcome that you can. And then I would also say, and this is important, you know, also realize that the act of not making a decision and handing it off, that responsibility, to someone else, that too is a decision unto itself. So don't shirk that responsibility. Don't duck away from tough decisions. Be confident in yourself and know that you can make the right one, and just, you know, take your time and do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like what you said about seeking advice. You know, it's one of the things that we've really stressed and emphasized in the sessions that are in the schools that we've had up to this point, is seek advice and learn from people that are where you want to be. You know, so if you want to go into the sports industry, sports marketing, seek someone out. You know, you may not know someone immediately, but maybe the student's parent knows someone who's in that industry. Ask them what it's like. You know, what is it like, perception versus reality and day to day. So if you want to be in the sports industry, in other words, don't go seeking advice from someone in real estate or being a CPA. If that's a trusted source, and then there's some things they can add to it, great. But make sure you're getting that, the info from the correct source. So that's great. Relationships, we all, as we go through our career and life, we understand more and more the importance of relationships, and not just relationships, but positive, impactful relationships, purposeful relationships. So I'll ask you both, how have relationships that you've built during your career impacted you personally or professionally? How do you view relationships differently now with a few years under your belt compared to when you did during your teenage, maybe even early career years? Mike, we'll start with you on this one.
You're being kind by noting a few years under my belt. There's certainly more than
that's true for all of us, right?
Certainly more than a few, but I look, life is about relationships. I mean, it's the most central thing to our reason for being on this earth. Actively cultivating relationships with the right people or the wrong people is the most important thing that you'll do in your life. And that's whether it be work, whether it be friends, whether it be marriage, with your spouse, with your children, with everyone. From a professional perspective, same thing. Relationships are everything. And in all the positions that I've had professionally over the last 20 years, I didn't attain a single one of them by what's on my resume. Every opportunity that's come my way that I've sought out, that I've gone after because it's something I wanted, it's been, everything I've been presented with has been based on other people's recommendations and referrals of me. And so and today I work with a lot of the same people in my current role that I did when I was with other companies in years past. And so if I had neglected those relationships in the past, if I had burned bridges, it would make my job really, really challenging today. So that's something I always think about. Don't ever burn a bridge. Yeah. And, I think that I've always had a good appreciation for that. And the importance of work relationships, but I definitely value them today, even more than I did when I was younger. And the thing you have to realize is, your work colleagues will become your closest friends. You got to keep in mind that as you go through life, you'll spend as much time with the people you work with as you do with your friends, and in some cases, your own family. And so, I can certainly say that some of my absolute closest friends in this world are people that I met through work and work with today. And so that's, it's important to nurture those.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with Mike. Relationships are everything. I think, professionally and personally, relationships propel you forward, and conversely, bad relationships pull you down both ways. So I think, you've got to always be watching what kind of relationship it is too. Just like Mike said, I kind of probably undervalued it when I was younger. I thought everything was dependent on me. It's really not. Everything you do in life depends on others. You can be a catalyst, or you can be something that's important as part of the process, but really without others, you're never going to really go anywhere or do anything in your life. You're really not going to learn or grow, which is the most important things you need to do all the time. I always talk about life vault, and I think relationships are one of those things that go in my life vault. My relationships with my family, my relationships with my parents, my relationships with my close friends, they're in that vault. But so are my business relationships, especially in the sports world. I can't tell you how critical relationships are in the sports world. You don't go anywhere in sports. People look at resumes and they immediately go and find out, who do you work with? Who do you know? Who can I check you out with? So if you've not gotten and have not built great relationships in the sports world, you're not going to go very far. You're just going to be a person in a very small bubble. So if you have aspirations of more, you're going to want to meet people. You're going to want to be involved with people. You're going to want to always, again, put them in the vault and treat them as something very important, a very valuable thing to you in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I love the vault concept. So, we've got students listening to this and they say, yeah, that makes total sense. And I agree with that. How do I as a student, as a 11th grade, 12th grade, junior, senior high school student, how do I do that? How do I begin to take those steps, and building those relationships? What would you say to that, Jim?
I say you got to take initiative. That's your first and most important thing, is don't wait on it to come to you. Go out and seek it. If there's nothing more flattering to someone in the business world, if you call them up, whether you're a high school kid or somebody's been working in the business for 30 years, calling up and say, hey, I really would like to learn more from you. I'm really, intrigued by the things I've heard of you and I've seen. I want to learn more how you do things. So, I need mentors in my life. There's no bigger complimented person to say, could you be my mentor? Somebody who helped me walk through the business. Right. So take the initiative and go out and talk to people and learn new things, and don't be afraid to say, gosh, I may not be good at this. That's okay. You may not be good, but you might be great at it then too. You don't know until you kind of get in the middle of it. So go seek advice, go learn more people, go introduce yourself to people. It's really tough. I mean, I'm kind of naturally an introvert, and that's tough on folks that are kind of naturally introverted. Right. To meet and seek people. But I've learned over the years that it's critical. It's what I do to make a career, is I've got to be able to go reach out to people and take their advice and learn and grow those relationships even better.
Yeah. Just so true. Taking the initiative, being assertive, getting out of your comfort zone, getting to the point of being comfortable with being uncomfortable, as they say.
Correct.
So, yeah. Mike?
Yeah, those are great points. And I was going to, echo a lot of that. I mean, I am an introvert by nature. In high school, I was a shy kid. It's not natural for me to put myself out there. And one of the things that I found over time, I would develop strong relationships and people would get to know me and respect me and appreciate what I brought to the table. But I also realized that their impression of me initially wasn't always very accurate. And it's because I didn't put myself out there and let people get to know who I was. And so if there's anything, when I look back on my life, that I wish that I would have done a better job of, it would be just that, taking that initiative to let people get to know me and take the initiative to try and get to know other people on more than just a surface level. And that's consistent with whether we're talking about building your career and your profession, your academics, just life. I think when you look at it more holistically, it really starts with you. It starts with who you are as a person, right. And you need to be true to yourself first and foremost. And then I think if you do that, and you're going to attract positive people, and so. Sometimes we make these things harder than they need to be, right? And I think if you practice the golden rule, you treat people with respect, and you're a person of integrity yourself, you're going to attract like-minded people, and you're going to also be able to sense the types of relationships that you don't want in your life. And you can take there's an act. You have to take initiative in that sense as well, right? Sometimes it's not easy, but you've got to walk away from certain relationships that you'll find are not taking you where you want to be in your life. And so that's tough to do at times, but it's something that all of us go through as we go through life.
Right. And that's one of the things we encourage the students in our sessions is, think and remind ourselves, we just kind of have to do that personal inventory of, looking at the people around us and asking ourselves, are we bringing out the best in these individuals? And are they bringing out the best in us? If not, maybe that circle of friends or, influencers may need to be revisited. So what can you share with the students about the importance of how their actions now, during their high school years, positive or negative, will have on their future? College, career, thoughts on that, Mike?
You touched on it when we first started talking, with your GPS, if you get up and plop down on the couch today and whip out your phone and scroll through social media, and that's pretty much all you do all day, then that's an active decision that you are making. And that is an action that you are taking. You're taking an action really to do nothing. And so, it's that, as I talked about earlier with decision making, it's the same thing. The act of doing nothing, or the act of not taking positive steps to get where you want to go, that is an act in and of itself. And you have to think about that. So it's about being intentional. John, you used that term earlier, making sure that with every decision that you make and the actions you take, you put thought into it, and you realize, look, it's different for you guys today than it was when we were growing up. It's a different era. I mean, I like to say, you guys are living in the gotcha era, right? Where social media, camera phones, surveillance cameras record virtually everything that we do in some form or fashion. So I think you guys, probably more so than people of our generation, are getting a firsthand glimpse of how people's actions, both good and bad, have a meaningful impact in terms of how they're perceived by not just their friends, but in many cases, the rest of the world. And it's kind of crazy. And so with that, I would say just be conscious of that and realize that the actions you take today, both good and bad, they will have consequences on your life. And the last thing I'll say to that is, if you do make a mistake, if you have to also understand that doesn't